Hi, I'm Crecha'Ann, and I want to say welcome and thank you for being here. Tonight is the first night that we're going to be discussing my actual personal experience of my alcohol and drug abuse. This is something that's going to be very, very emotional at times. It's going to be real, it's going to be raw, and it's going to be sensitive. But I feel that by doing this, I could help someone. I'm hoping that if you're listening right now, perhaps you'll just give me the time so that way you can understand that you're not alone. See, drugs and alcohol ran rampant from many, many generations back. And it just carried on and carried on and carried on within our family. So growing up, drugs and alcohol was a pretty normal thing to be in the household. It was pretty normal for me to see people being passed out, being really drunk, making poor choices, doing silly things, you name it. It was happening. And I thought it was normal because that's all I had ever seen. Now, as I got older, the one thing that I could honestly say is there was a special person in my life, and she self-medicated and she drank because she too was trying to numb herself from her own personal childhood traumas. And that person was my biological mother. Now, as beautiful as she was on the outside, she was completely the opposite on the inside. She was cold, distant. She isolated herself quite often. And many times, she just wasn't even home. When she was home, we witnessed the madness that came with her self-medicating and drug abuse and drinking. And I said to myself at a really, really early age, I didn't want to be like that. I never wanted to be like that. But as I got older, I found myself in my early 20s slowly slipping down that slippery slope and becoming just like her. It started out simple, socializing with some friends, having girls' nights, Taco Tuesday, having a bottle of wine with the girls. But then it moved on to a regular, everyday, or every evening thing. And I know the reasons why. It was simply because my childhood had a lot of trauma in it. And it was never dealt with. It was always swept under the carpet. There was a lot of abandonment issues, loneliness, and I pretty much had to raise myself, as well as my little brother. It was a difficult thing, and when I'm sharing this with you, I hope you understand that there's going to be moments that are going to be really raw and very emotional, and it's going to be sensitive for me to talk about. But I think that it's necessary that I share this story with you because too many of us are going through this, or have gone through this, or know somebody that's going through this. So in my early 20s, I started socializing pretty much on a regular basis, with friends, colleagues from work. And there was always a reason to drink. And there was always a reason to just have fun, But then it became a habit. And I knew I was turning out just like my mom, the woman that I didn't want to become. Now, as I said before, she was beautiful on the outside. However, the ugliness that she had within herself when she was under the influence, I never wanted to have for myself. It was happening really, really fast. And before I knew it, I was down that rabbit hole. I couldn't even look myself in the mirror. It sickened me because I saw myself just like I saw her. But I didn't learn. I just kept doing it. And things got worse and worse and worse. I started losing friends. I started losing trust from my family, losing trust from the friends that I had left. I had broken relationships. I was making bad choices, bad decisions, taking risks by getting behind the wheel and driving. You name it, I did it. And I'd always wake up the next morning with that shame and that guilt and that same thing that we all say to ourselves, today's going to be different. I'm not going to do that again. But guess what? I did. And I continued to do so until I was completely to the point where all my bridges were burnt. My family was no longer, wanting to talk to me because they were literally watching me have a slow death. And although they had been modeling that behavior when I was growing up, I had surpassed that leaps and bounds. I seriously had problems. The reasons I used and the reasons why I drank were because of childhood traumas that had never been dealt with, teenage traumas that had never been dealt with, and I just wanted to numb myself. I wanted to stop feeling that pain. I started isolating myself, and I started drinking more and more. And it caused me to lose my career. And by causing me to lose my career, well, that was a domino effect. Man, I'll tell you, I knew what was happening. And it still didn't stop me. I still continued to use, and I still continued to drink. The pain that I felt was only numbed for a very short time. But the next day, the feelings were still there. The guilt was even worse. The shame was through the roof. And I began to completely be alone. My oldest daughter ended up moving in with her biological dad. And she flat out told me, Mom, if you don't get help, I can't be a part of your life. And that's pretty heavy to hear from a 12-year-old. She had watched me go down this terrible, terrible spiral for 3 straight years, making poor choices, drinking on a regular basis, making excuses for my poor choices. Yeah, it's tough to talk about. But I'll tell you what. I finally realized the damage that I had caused, not just to myself, but to everybody that was in my life or had been in my life. It got so bad that my actual dad literally got in my face and said, I can't talk to you anymore. I can't see you anymore. Don't contact me because I love you too much to watch you kill yourself. So between hearing my daughter giving me that ultimatum and hearing my father tell me our relationship was no more until I got my shit figured out, I finally made that decision. But prior to making that decision, there was a lot of damage that I had occurred, that I had done. The friendships I lost, the relationships that were broken, the bridges that were burned, the lies, the deceit, the excuses, the broken promises. I could go on and on and on. But this is not for me to be like, woe's me or anything. This is simply for you to be able to understand that if you're feeling any of this, you're not alone. This is not just going to be a one segment discussion. This is going to be a couple more to it because there's just far too much to literally put in place in just one video. So if any of this touches your heart, or if any of this feels like you recognize it, or you've been going through it yourself, or you've known someone that's going through it and you're enabling them, just stick with me and hear what I have to say. I really appreciate the time that you've given me. I know that many of you may feel helpless and hopeless, and I want you to know that if you ever feel the need to, you can comment me and I will respond. In the meantime, I will save and share with you more of my journey to recovery. And those areas and those things that I'll be talking about in our next segment are just going to be just as raw, just as real, just as emotional as this one is right now. But I want you to know that there is hope and you can make it through. It's hard and it takes a lot of work. But if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and if you're tired of losing the people that you love, or you're tired of always making the excuses and lying and making broken promises, then this is the channel that you need to be watching right now. So stick with me, because I'm going to share with you my journey. And if it can make a difference in just one person's life, then that will just make my heart feel that much more happier to know that someone has been saved. See, alcohol and drugs rob you. In today's society, it's glamorized. It's in movies, it's in commercials, it's in songs, and they make it look so fun. But the one thing that they don't do is show you the damage that it causes in families. I want to thank you for watching and sticking with me to this point. I hope that you'll stay tuned for the next segment. And I want you to know that you are valuable, you are lovable, you are important. And lastly, don't give up. Just don't give up, because you matter. You matter more than you ever realize. And one day you're going to wake up and your whole world's going to change. And that change is going to be for the better. So I want to say thank you. And lastly, I want to say, if you haven't already, please click on the bell, like and share this video so we can get this out there to those who truly, truly need to hear it. Because there's so many of us that are going through it, have gone through it, or know someone who's going through it. And it's not talked about enough. Anyhow, thank you for listening.